Welcome to Dicta, your weekly dose of law school and bar exam info. I'm Carrie Ann.
And I'm Puyan, and we're the co-founders of Vinco.
And today we're going to give you our best tips for outlining to prepare for your law school final exams. So let me start with you. How did you prepare for your finals? Not your whole system, but just in terms of the materials that you created.
Well, I would basically, toward the end of the semester, go through all of the cases I went through during the year and re-brief them. That was basically my system for maybe the first year and a half
of law school.
Mm-hmm.
So pretend you didn't hear that would be my best advice. No, but that's really common. A lot of students don't know what to do, so you learn in your classes to read and brief cases, so you think that going through that process again is the best way to prepare for your final exam. And now being on the flip side of all this, would you say that was the most effective way to prepare for your finals?
No.
No.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It was really inefficient. I was rereading all of the cases. It took hundreds of hours, and I performed probably in the middle of my class.
So, and I can tell you why that happened, because outlining the process of preparing for your final exams is rule-based, not case-based. And this is something that I see even third-year law students doing, is coming to me with summaries of cases where they've just pretty much copied and pasted their briefs into another document and, played around with the formatting and said, oh, this is an outline. So I'm going to use the term outline today in a broader sense. When you think of a traditional law school outline, what do you think of? What does it look like?
I mean, I think of Roman numerals,
right.
Big letters A, little letters,
yep. No,
and just indented,
yes.
Becoming more specific, less specific, and with section headings.
Okay, so you think of this like traditional white page Word document
that
it's just by topic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's, when you talk about outlining in law school, that's what most people think of. I use the word outlining as sort of a synonym for breaking down material. So I'm going to talk about 3 different ways, and they're not the only ways, but there are 3 different ways to outline or break down material to prepare for your final exams. So the first one is the traditional law school outline, which sounds like Puyan did some version of that in his preparing for final exams. I also did this my first semester of law school, and this was not a super effective learning tool for me. And that's because it is geared towards this traditional outline system, towards a specific kind of learning style, which is called read-write, which is what all of law school really caters to, and only a very small population of students actually learn that way. So it's no surprise that you get to law school, you're learning this whole new system, and you go to prepare for final exams the way everyone is telling you have to do it, and it doesn't work for you. So I would sit down on my computer screen, my head would go blank, I wouldn't know what to do. But some students like this and it works for them. So the best way to do it is to pull out the rules from your cases and start with that. So not starting with, this is what happened in these 5 cases, but starting with, these are the rules from these 5 cases, and starting to make connections between them. So do you think that would have, how do you think that would have played out for you?
That would have been much more efficient. Yeah, the way I was outlining, if I didn't see identical facts, it would have been difficult to apply the rules and analysis.
And then did you see identical facts on your final exam?
I mean, I tried to analogize what I saw with the facts of cases, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It kind of depended on the course and the professor.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, your method seems way better. No one ever taught me how to brief these cases. Well, they did. They taught me how to brief them, but they never taught me how to effectively study.
Step 2. Yeah. So that actually brings me to a somewhat unrelated point, but chances are, if you are at a decent law school, you have some sort of academic success program or academic support program, it might have a different name, that runs workshops that teaches you how to do these things. But they might not be very well advertised, or they might be called something that you're not sure what they mean, but find out what that department is at your law school and see what resources they have for you to learn about these skills sooner rather than later. But that as an aside, if you're going to be working through a traditional outline, you want to remember that you're starting with the rules. You start with the most broad rule and you go more and more narrow until you hit the exceptions. Everything gets the definition. And then once you've worked through all that, then you bring in the cases as examples of the rule. So that's that traditional indented Roman numeral outline. I preferred something called charting. Did you ever make charts? I don't think.
I did toward the end.
Okay.
I specifically remember, like, in my first year, I only did it for constitutional law.
Okay.
Because, you know, some parts of it lended themselves well toward charting.
That was my first class that I charted for as well.
And then I stopped for a while, and then I think later on when I was doing, like, criminal procedure, I began charting again. I'm not sure why exactly.
Well,
but
it's a constitutional law-based class,
true.
so
that's true.
It kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So once I started charting, I became completely obsessed and didn't stop. That was my form of breaking material down or outlining for all of my courses. And I think this worked for me because I'm a visual learner. So everything I did was by hand. I would make these crazy charts on the whiteboard at school, and then I would take a picture, and then I would copy it over and make it pretty and make it make sense. But I would have a one-page chart for every main topic that we had in a class. So maybe that was 9 to 15 charts, depending on the class. And that was it. That would pretty much be my whole outline for the class. But I knew what every part of that was, and it was broken down. And the same principle applied as the traditional outline, that it wasn't case-based. I was starting with the rules, and then I would pencil in the cases at the appropriate points for an example. But same thing, I would start with broad and work to narrow and give definitions and work to the exceptions. And these were those kind of flow charts with the lines that drop down from top to bottom. And that really worked for me as a visual learner. And again, yes, it did lend itself better to some classes over others.
Yeah.
I did all three kinds of outlining that we're going to talk about today, and it just depended on the class. So the third thing, I call them mini roadmaps or one-page breakdowns, which is sort of like a hybrid of charting and traditional outlines. And I'm sure I didn't make this up, but I don't really know what other people call it. So these were just shorter outlines that weren't in Roman numeral form. So it had the brevity of the chart where I just had a one-page roadmap for each main subject. So now we're talking 9 to 15 roadmaps. But it was in a Word document typed up, and it was broken down from broad to narrow, but it really took out anything and everything that was not essential to my understanding. And I said, because for me it was an overwhelm thing. I thought, I can't learn or memorize 40 pages. I can learn anything I need to know about one topic on one page.
Right.
So I challenged myself to do that. And sometimes it was a page and a quarter. But for the most part, that was my goal. And it really forced me to think about what was essential, what was super important. Did you ever try that method? I don't know.
I did, actually.
Did you call it something else? What did you
No, so I basically, after a year and a half of law school, I began to realize, like, my method is taking longer than... I'm spending more time in the library than other people preparing, but I'm not performing as well as some of my peers, and, you know, what am I doing differently? So I did start to basically just take I continued to brief every single case, and then I would create a massive outline and then just break it down. So initially my outline would be like 30 pages long, and by the time I'm done with it, it would be like 5 to 8 pages long.
So you started big and did a paring down process.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's what I pretty much did as well, only the difference was I would just compile all my briefs and class notes in a document and then start from there. I didn't go through like an outlining process and scale it back. I would use my class notes and briefs to do that, but the same idea. And what's essential to take away, regardless of what method you choose to go with, whether it's this or something else, what's important is that you're breaking down the material, that you are understanding what rules go together, and then that you're using cases as examples. So as long as your approach going in isn't, I need to memorize what happened in every case, you are probably on the right track. And as it would turn out, we have a really great resource. I might be biased because I made it, but about preparing for final exams and breaking down material, and I go even into more depth on these 3 specific methods with templates for you to use. So you can get this free resource called Crush at bit.ly/crush offer. And if that doesn't work, you can just head to our website, which is bincoprep.com.
Let me just say that don't go through law school the way I went through it. Every semester, if you're not improving, you should be refining the way you're studying and preparing. I didn't begin changing my method until, a year and a half in. So 3 series of final exams went by before I really started to make a change. I wish I had the guide that you created when I was going through law school. When I was reading it, I was like, wow, this would have really improved my GPA substantially. So just don't make the same mistakes that I made.
Yeah, I mean, having that ability to be sort of self-aware about what you're doing and adapt accordingly can really, make or break you in law school.
Yeah.
And even if you're still able to sort of struggle through, at the very least, it can make your life easier to make some of these changes. So check it out and then come join us in our Facebook group and let us know what you think or if you have any questions about it, because that's what we're there to do. We're there to help you with those questions. And be sure to come back and check us out next week.